The Detroit Tigers are right now the best team in Major League Baseball, but they need to learn a critical lesson from the recent Baltimore Orioles and Chicago White Sox.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans, and welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter, or whatever they're calling it these days. And on Instagram, I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram, but the best way to get a hold of me is right here on the YouTube channel, and leave that hashtag EverydaySully. So we gotta, it helps us find your comments. That's why we do it. I'm not here trying to get your information. I'm not mining data. It is, Sunday is wrapping up. The NBA Finals are going on right now, and I'm out here. I'm just outside of Sunken Diamond here at Stanford University. This is a big place, which was a huge college baseball program. At least it was in the 80s and 90s. Let's talk about who owned baseball for June 22nd, 2025. Andrew Abbott threw 7 strong innings, allowed 1 run, struck out 3 Cardinals as the Reds won 4-1. Dominic Canzone hit 2 home runs and got another hit as the Mariners outlasted the Cubs 14-6. Max Muncy, the one for the Dodgers, not the one for the A's, drove in 7 runs with 2 homers, including a grand slam. The Dodgers topped the Nationals 13-7. And Will Warren overcame a really shaky first inning to hold the Orioles to 2 runs. Both runs were in the first, over 6 1/3 innings, and the Yankees rallied late for a 4-1 victory, so they won themselves another series. Half wobs go to Chris Bassett. He threw 6 strong innings, allowing 1 run, but the Blue Jays were doubled up by the Chicago White Sox. Byron Buxton homered twice. Man, the Twins. Remember there was that period of time when the Twins couldn't lose? Well, now they can't win. They lost 9-8 to the Milwaukee Brewers. And by the way, we're going to be doing a mailbag for some of the questions and comments people have been leaving. And I swear on my father's memory, I was not trying to belittle Freddie Peralta when I called Mazzarzi their new ace. I was just saying he's an exciting young pitcher, and I know Freddie Peralta exists. I wasn't trying to throw shade on him. But the Brewers wound up winning again despite the 2 home runs by Byron Buxton. Michael Soroka, he struck out 10 Dodgers in 5 1/3 innings, but the Nationals bullpen got absolutely torched in a 13-7 final. And Seiya Suzuki got 2 home runs, but the Cubs fell to Seattle 14-6. And there were some other very big games. The Red Sox wound up losing. So, Dad, if you're watching, wherever you are, your Giants won the rubber game. And that means the Red Sox fell out of a playoff spot. They had a playoff spot for a bunch of days after the trade of Rafael Devers to the San Francisco Giants, but losing the series to the Giants, plus some of the other teams that have been playing pretty well in the American League, has mean the Red Sox has fallen out, and Seattle and Cleveland are jumping back into it. And the Mets, well, they got off the schneid and stopped losing with that big game against the Philadelphia Phillies the other day. Well, the Phillies and Luzardo and Schwarber all did a pretty good job of coming back. Well, right now we are going to be going into the final full week of June. And we're just a couple weeks away from being the halfway mark of the season. And the American League, as predicted, is going to be an absolute logjam. If you are not rooting for the Orioles, the A's, or the White Sox, your team is still in it in the American League. Yes, including the Angels. They lost today, but they have been getting back into it. However, the best team in baseball right now, as I'm recording this, would be the Detroit Tigers. Not just the best team in the American League, the best team in baseball. Today, they wound up winning a game that was it was a deceptive final score. It was I think it was 9-2 was the final. Yeah, 9-2 was the final, where they beat the Tampa Bay Rays. And really, for a while, it looked like the Yankees were going to lose to Baltimore. It looked like the Rays were going to rally against Detroit. If that happened, the Rays would have pulled to within half a game of first. But instead, the Yankees have a 2.5 game lead. I'll get back to the Rays in a second segment here, or in a later segment. But the Detroit Tigers won today with some big-time offense. Who was Wencel Perez was the big hero today. The go-ahead home run, 2 for 4, 3 runs batted in. And it was a 3-1 game, and then it became a 9-2 final. Some other contributions from Riley Green and Spencer Torkelson. Mize threw 5 good innings. And with that, the Detroit Tigers have given themselves some wiggle room. And they are playing very, very well, thank you very much. And, even though the Cleveland Guardians have played pretty well recently, the Tigers have the best record in all of baseball. And with that, the Tigers are really in an interesting position. It was just a year ago they were a disappointing team, trading away Jack Flaherty and wondering if they should trade away Tarik Skubal. By the way, Skubal's having another fantastic season, and he could wind up making it back-to-back Cy Young Awards. And then things turned around in a hurry. They had a phenomenal final third of the season, somehow stormed into the playoffs, and eliminated Minnesota, who had dreams of getting back to the postseason. Then the Tigers went to Houston, eliminated the Astros, therefore ending their streak of going to the American League Championship Series, and then almost stunned the Cleveland Guardians. In fact, they got to Game 5 of the division series and had Tarik Skubal on the mound. Now, as it turned out, Cleveland wound up winning that game and going to the ALCS, but things turned around in an awful hurry. Now, I picked the Detroit Tigers to win the division this year, but mainly because I thought it was a mediocre division, and I didn't think it was going to take a lot to win. I thought 88 wins was going to win the division. I still feel that, but I think this Tiger team is going to shoot right past that. They are really good this year, and there is no super team in the American League. The Yankees have shown they're vulnerable. We all know they're vulnerable. Even last year they were vulnerable, and they were exposed in the World Series because they were a flawed fundamental team. They also go by the way of Aaron Judge. If Aaron Judge isn't hitting, the Yankees aren't hitting. And all it will take is, 4 decent games against the Yankees to put them on their heels. This is a unique situation for the Detroit Tigers, who are waiting for their first World Series title since Ronald Reagan was the president. 1984. It was Reagan's first term, by the way. So, with that in mind, a sense of urgency has to take place with the Detroit Tigers, and an urgency that they can look at the recent examples of the Orioles and the White Sox of how to handle things. Guys, you've probably heard of Viagra or Cialis, or maybe even tried them. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rugiet Ready. Rugiet Ready is a next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. And unlike the usual pills that can take hours, Rugiet's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast, on average in 15 minutes. And the effects can last up to 36 hours. You can stay confident and in control when the moment is right. Now, if traditional options haven't worked, Rugiet might be the answer. Over 150,000 men have already made the switch. And you can read real customer reviews on their site. It's helping a lot of people feel more confident and present in the moment. Head to rugiet.com/LockedOnMLB and use code LockedOnMLB to get 15% off today. That's rugiet.com/LockedOnMLB and use promo code LockedOnMLB for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing reviews. Please use Rugiet website for full safety information. I mentioned earlier that in the American League, as of this recording in front of Sunken Diamond in Stanford University, if you are rooting for an American League team and your team doesn't play in Chicago, Baltimore, or Sacramento, then your team is still in it. Your team may be a long shot, and I don't think the Angels are necessarily going to be a great team, but you know what? They're only 3 back in the loss column of a playoff position. And the American League is wide open enough that if you make the postseason, you got a halfway decent shot. But the Detroit Tigers are the type of team, and could be the type of team, that could very well be a legitimate pennant and possibly a World Series contender. And for the Detroit Tigers, their fans have been really patient. There have been some not good, but great Tiger teams that have made the playoffs since that 1984 World Series, but have fallen frustratingly short. The 1987 Tigers were probably the best overall team in baseball that made the playoffs that year, but they got their toe stubbed by a ridiculous play format that gave the Minnesota Twins home field advantage, even though the Tigers had a better record. And the Twins had an unbelievable home field advantage in 1987 and wound up winning that ALCS in 5 games. The era which the Tigers had an unreal starting rotation with the likes of Verlander, with the likes of Scherzer, with Fisters, with Porcello, and for a while David Price, they always just seemed to lack a bullpen closer. If they had a halfway decent bullpen closer in 2013, they would have beaten the Red Sox. They had a big lead late in games 4 and in game 6. Game 2 and game 6. And we all remember the David Ortiz grand slam with the cop jumping up and down. But in many ways, a harsher one was the Shane Victorino grand slam that put him ahead for good in game 6. Those are 2 games which the Tigers had a lead late in a Max Scherzer start, and they lost both of them because the bullpen coughed up a grand slam. That Tigers team probably should have won the World Series. The 2012 team had a real good shot of winning the World Series. They got to the World Series, and they had Justin Verlander on the mound against Barry Zito in game 1. Naturally, Barry Zito won because baseball's insane. Tiger fans have been waiting long and hard for this. But here's the deal. They are a legitimate pennant contender. Excuse me, I had to scratch my lip there. They're a legitimate pennant contender this year. And there could be a moment where you think like, well, do you know what? It's going to be this way for a while. They've got a young core. They got a young star in Tarik Skubal. They're going to be here for a while. That's what the White Sox thought. In 2020 and 2021, they made the playoffs in back-to-back years. And they're to look at their teams. And my God, we got Abreu, we got Anderson, we got Yoan Moncada, we got all these terrific players. And we're playing in the Central, which is a winnable, but we're going to be winning the division in perpetuity. A couple years later, they're the worst team in the history of baseball. Take a look at the Baltimore Orioles in 2023. They were a 100-some-odd win team, and the American League opened like a proverbial oyster to them. They were looking at a situation where the Red Sox and the Yankees were out of it. Now, back then, I took them to task. I took them to task big time because that team was filled with minor leaguers and prospects, and they desperately needed to make trades to upgrade their rotation going into the playoffs. They made a couple of minor cosmetic changes, but they held on, clinging to all their prospects like they're like a koala hanging onto a tree. And I took them to task saying all of those prospects have to come through because you held on to all of them when you could have had a chance to improve the team going into the playoffs. What happened? They made it to the playoffs. Their thin pitching staff was exposed by the eventual World Series champion Texas Rangers. Oh, but they have all these prospects that are going to be great for the next bunch of years. Well, I got news for you. A lot of those prospects aren't panning out. A lot of those big stars are not panning out. Yes, Gunnar Henderson is fine, and Adley Rutschman is okay when he's not hurt. But a lot of those other players are saying, you know what? If they're not going to contribute to the 2023 team, they should be available. Pry loose a star or two and go for it. As the Orioles haven't won the World Series, haven't been to a World Series since 1983. But no, we're going to keep our prospects, we're going to keep our prospects. Now, they're one of the 3 teams not contending. Granted, they've played better recently. I'll give you that. They have played better recently, but they have to leapfrog about 6 or 7 teams to get to the 3rd wildcard spot. They had their opportunity. These windows of opportunity are not as long as you think they are. Now, sometimes a team can take that window of opportunity and play it perfectly. Take a look at the Kansas City Royals, who had a very small window of opportunity and parlayed that into 2 trips to the World Series. And they made some aggressive moves, trading away a top prospect in Will Myers and bringing in the likes of Wade Davis and James Shields. That trade got killed initially, but became a big part of why they won the pennant. It was Wade Davis on the mound with his arms up, clinching the World Series. Will Myers was a fine player, but worth the deal. And later they traded away a couple other fine players to get Johnny Cueto. Now, Cueto didn't have a great regular season with them, but he remains the last pitcher to throw a complete game victory in the World Series and help them clinch that World Series. It was a big part of that. He skedaddled after the World Series, but who cares? The Detroit Tigers have to make deals to improve their team because it may not be their only chance, but they have to kind of act like it. And you take a look, they probably need some more bullpen depth. They have a good starting rotation. They can use some bullpen depth. They probably, another pitcher who could never hurt, and they probably need 1 veteran slugger in the middle of that lineup. Right now they get great contribution up and down the lineup, but a big slugger somewhere in there can go a long way. Now here's the deal. Who is available right now? Seeing this is a team that has a chance to win the World Series this year, I'm going to say something. If a player is currently in their farm system and will not be on the 2025 roster, they're available. If you can make a deal that will put the team over the top and will cost them someone who is not even going to make the team this year, then yeah, they're available. A lot of can't-miss prospects are sent off in trades that miss badly. Kyle Drabeck, Montero, Laporta, all these names that were huge when they were traded away. Oh my God, they're going to become giant stars. And they don't. And it's worth pulling off the deal. Right now, the 4 best prospects, according to MLB.com, in the Tigers organization are Max Clark, Kevin McGonigal, Bryce Rayner, and Jose Bracheno. I may have mispronounced that last name. I beg your forgiveness. What do their 4 top prospects have all in common? They're all in single A right now. Single A. Now, this may be harsh, okay? But the leap from single A to double A and the leap from double A to the major leagues is gigantic. If the Tigers could get a good major league hitter to put in their lineup, a good major league reliever to put in their bullpen, and a good major league starter to put in their rotation, and it would cost them all 4 of those names I just said, then that is an incredible bargain. Even if they all turn out to be fine players, none of them are going to contribute this year. They're not even going to, if they make it to double A, pat them on the back. This is a chance now. Their window of opportunity could be right now. Oh, they'll be there for years. Tell that to White Sox fans who may not win another division until they're in Nashville. Tell that to Oriole fans who just 2 years ago had the manager of the year in a 100-win team and a super young roster, and all the Jackson Holidays and all them are going to become superstars. And now they're on the outside looking in a league where they're going to look over and say, we're with the A's and the White Sox? One team playing in a minor league park and the other team playing footsie with Nashville and Baltimore. There's their window of opportunity. Tigers' window of opportunity is right now. No offense, Max Clark, Bryce Rayner. You could be a great player. But do you know what? If it means you can pry loose a major leaguer, then go ahead. Remember how the Tigers were lusting for Alex Bregman? Well, when Bregman comes off the IL, and you know he can opt out after this year, I don't know, tell the Red Sox you're willing to pry him loose. If they're willing to trade away Rafael Devers to save money, maybe they'll salivate over the thought of Max Clark and saving money. Go call up Arizona, who's having a tremendous amount of injuries on their team, and start to pick that carcass. Get Eugenio Suarez maybe on the team. I don't know. Kick the tires. You don't know who's going to be available, especially if you offer a halfway decent prospect who could help the team in a few years. This is the window of opportunity where you have a vulnerable Astros team, a vulnerable Yankee team. The Centrals appears to be theirs, and they have a chance to go to the World Series and maybe win it. Don't do what Baltimore did and hoard their prospects. And don't think that you're going to be there forever, because in 2021, the White Sox look like they're going to keep winning the Central for the rest of the decade. One World Series title can justify an entire decade. It did with the Angels in the 2000s. It did with the Nationals in the 2010s. It did with the Cardinals in the 2010s. You win one title, you got the team off the schneid. Be aggressive. Your 4 top prospects, they're available. If you think I'm crazy, guess what? If it's the difference between winning a World Series or not, all 4 of those prospects, incredibly cheap. Hey, did you ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. It's your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you can stop just managing your money and start building wealth. You know, when I started using Monarch, there were all these streaming services and other subscriptions that I forgot even existed. And now, instead of juggling multiple apps, I can use Monarch to check my finances, track spending, and even make long-term goals. And you can manage money with your partner smoother, as you have shared personal accounts that goals and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. Now, Detroit wound up beating Tampa Bay, but Tampa Bay has been playing really well. Tampa Bay has been playing really well with a lot of heart. They won the series against the Tigers, and they won that wild game against Baltimore where they were down, I think it was 8-0 after 2 or 3 innings. And right now, as I'm recording this outside of Sunken Diamond here in Stanford, the Rays are a playoff team. And right now, as I'm recording this, they would have home field advantage in the first round of the wild card series. And as I'm recording this, they're 2.5 games behind the Yankees. And we're in June. It's a long way to go. And truthfully, I believe the Yankees are going to wind up winning this division. But 2.5 games is not insurmountable. That's not insurmountable in September. And we're not even in July. If the Yankees stub their toe in July or August, and the Rays play a little bit above their head. Now, it's no disrespect to the Rays, but I think on paper we agree the Yankees are a better team than Tampa. But if we've seen teams come out of the blue and overtake some clubs. Did I mention the Tigers in this episode? There is a possibility larger than zero that the Rays could win the division. Right now, it looks like the Rays are absolutely a playoff team. Now, they could fall short, and the Red Sox or the Mariners or the Guardians or the Angels or some other team or the Rangers, which a lot of people thought were going to be a big contender, and they're starting to creep up the way. Any of those teams could wind up eliminating the Rays and avoid a potential headache. But a potential headache is right there, and baseball has to address it now. They have to start figuring it out now. Not tomorrow, not after breakfast, now. And yes, I just channeled the warden from the Shawshank Redemption. What is the problem I'm talking about? There is a much larger than zero chance that the Tampa Bay Rays will be in the postseason, which means they have to have a stadium to play in. Now, are they going to play at Steinbrenner Field, the minor league facility? Is that where they're going to play? Now, Steinbrenner Field is evidently a much better facility than the Sutter Health Park in Sacramento, home of your Sacramento A's, because that's designed to be a AAA park, and Steinbrenner Field is designed to be a spring training home for a major league team. So they have better clubhouse and better facilities, but they are still a minor league stadium. Are they going to play playoff games at a minor league stadium? Would there be a scenario if they make it to the ALCS and make it to the World Series? And don't say that's an impossibility, lest we forget what happened with the Arizona Diamondbacks a couple years ago, who went from not having home field advantage in the wild card series to being in the freaking World Series against the Texas Rangers. What's the plan? Start coming up with solutions now. Because this whole problem that they're having with the stadium crises with the Rays and the A's, for obviously a big part of what's happened with the Rays was the hurricane ripping the top of the stadium off like it was a can of tuna. But they were in this bad situation for a while. We've known the situation for the stadium in Tampa Bay has been a terrible situation for literally decades. And somehow we got to the point where we can't deal, we don't have a solution yet. And I think the possibility of them playing in the Trop is right around zero this year. This is not just put a new roof on it, which would be expensive enough. Nobody really knows what the damage is inside there. There's still a bucket. It's still a roofless bucket. And the water damage, and there's no drainage because it's a dome stadium. So the chances of them playing in the Trop are, I think, non-existent. So they have to come up with something. They have to come up with a solution. And they have to come up with, if the Rays make the playoffs, here's where they're going to play. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about the ownership bids that have been coming around and whether or not the dude from Jacksonville is going to buy the team, whether or not the people from Orlando are going to buy the team. We're still figuring it all out. But the fact of the matter is this. This could be a huge problem for baseball, because if they're facing a team playing in the playoffs in a minor league stadium, that's not going to be allowed. But are you going to have the team play like in Miami? They were having trouble filling up a playoff team, the playoff stadium, when they were playing in St. Pete. Are those Rays fans and the whole thought was, well, we have to travel too far to that game. Well, try traveling to Miami. Are we really going to have a situation where we have a stadium crisis? It's June. The playoffs are a ways away. But you got to plan ahead, folks. We need to hear what the situation is going to be. And it can't be, which has been their current plan for the last few decades. Come up with solutions. You got yourself into this mess. And let me tell you something. I'm not a Rays fan by any stretch of the imagination. But boy, I wanted to be one of the wild card teams, if for no other reason than to see Major League Baseball try to come up with a solution. Hey, thanks so much for making Locked On MLB your first listen today. For your second listen, keep it right here for the Locked On MLB game night. Every game, every night, all season long. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Talking about the Tigers and their window of opportunity that may not be as open as long as you think it would be. And the Tampa Bay Rays, who may make the playoffs and throw a major league wrench of inconvenience to the owners. This has been Locked on MLB. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.